ever thought of gunpowder as more than just, well, boom?
Get ready to rethink what you thought you knew.
Today's deep dive is going to be explosive.
Literally.
Literally, yeah. But also in how it upends the usual story we think we know about gunpowder.
We're going deep into some fascinating excerpts from the Poisons and Pestilence podcast.
Okay.
Specifically, episodes 11, 15, and 17.
They paint a picture of early gunpowder use that's, well, less about cannons and more like something straight out of a historical thriller. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Help me make sense of all this.
Okay.
Because honestly, my knowledge of early gunpowder is pretty much limited to fireworks and maybe a vague memory about monks and saltpeter.
Well, get ready to have those memories blown right out of the water. Because you see, while Europe was still figuring out the whole knights and castles thing over in China, they were already experimenting with gunpowder.
Okay.
And not just for fireworks.
Oh.
I'm sensing these experiments involve more, let's say, destructive applications.
Let's just say they were early adopters of the idea that if you're going to make something go boom, you might as well make it as unpleasant as possible for anyone on the receiving end.
Okay, now you've got my attention.
What exactly were they cooking up in, 9th century China?
Think incendiaries.
Okay.
Smoke bombs.
Uh-huh.
And, get this, weapons designed to deliver not just fire and fury, but also a hefty dose of toxins.
Okay.
They even had a name for gunpowder that hints at this kind of alchemical side of it. Fire drug. Reflecting its alchemical origins. A blend of mysticism and, shall we say, experimental chemistry.
Fire drug. It sounds almost harmless, like, something you'd brew up in a teacup rather than launch at your enemies.
Right.
But don't let the name fool you. These early Chinese inventors were already combining their knowledge of gunpowder with their understanding of poisons.
Okay.
Creating weapons that were as ingenious as they were terrifying. We're talking about things like trebuchet-launched poison smoke bombs.
Smoke bombs, I get, but poison smoke. What kind of poisons are we talking about here?
Some of the recipes they were using are straight out of a medieval nightmare.
Okay.
Aconite, a potent poison with a long history, even croton oil.
Wait a minute, croton oil? Like, what's in those intense chemical peels?
Were they seriously lobbing, facials at each other?
Apparently, exfoliation as warfare is not a new concept.
But, on a more serious note, this really highlights the ingenuity and, frankly, the ruthlessness of these early chemical warriors. They were clearly experimenting with a variety of substances, trying to find that perfect cocktail of pain and chaos.
It sounds like they were grappling with one of the fundamental challenges of chemical warfare, right?
Yeah.
How to effectively disperse a toxic substance for maximum impact. I mean, they couldn't exactly package this stuff in a spray bottle.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where inventions like the sky-filling smoke-spurting tube come in.
Okay.
This thing, which likely used arsenic smoke, shows that they were already thinking about how to deliver these deadly substances on a larger scale.
Arsenic smoke raining down from the sky.
Talk about a mood killer. But as horrifying as that sounds, it seems like these early Chinese innovations were pretty significant.
Absolutely. They were essentially laying the groundwork for the types of chemical weapons that would emerge centuries later, grappling with those fundamental questions. How to upscale toxicity for maximum impact, how to effectively deliver it. It's both fascinating and, in retrospect, incredibly unsettling.
It really makes you wonder how much of this early knowledge actually made its way out of China. I mean, wasn't the Silk Road a thing back then?
It was, but the spread of gunpowder westward involved some unexpected players.
Okay.
Get ready for a plot twist.
All right.
It was the Mongols who played a pivotal role in transmitting this knowledge and potentially even these early poison weapon designs to the West.
Hold on. The Mongols.
Weren't they all about brute force, conquering on horseback?
I don't exactly picture them as the knowledge-sharing type.
That's the common misconception.
Yeah.
The Mongols were surprisingly adept at incorporating new technologies into their military strategies. Think of them as the ultimate pragmatists. If something worked on the battlefield, they were going to use it, and that they could improve upon it even better.
So they were more than just conquerors. They were kind of like open source warriors, picking up and adapting useful tech wherever they went.
Exactly.
And gunpowder, with its terrifying potential, was too valuable to ignore. We have accounts of the Mongols using smoke weapons against European forces during their campaigns in the 13th century.
This is fascinating because it challenges the traditional narrative of gunpowder slowly trickling into Europe through trade.
So instead of a slow trickle of knowledge, maybe Europe got a sudden and very unpleasant crash course in the destructive power of gunpowder, courtesy of the Mongols.
I'm guessing those encounters left an impression.
Oh, absolutely. It makes you wonder, did those early exposures to what were essentially rudimentary chemical weapons plant the seeds for Europe's own fascination with poison warfare later on? It's a question that's going to lead us down an even more intriguing and, frankly, bizarre path.
Okay, you've definitely piqued my curiosity.
What exactly did Europeans do with this newfound knowledge?
Because I have a feeling it wasn't just smoke signals and party tricks.
You're right about that. Buckle up.
Okay.
Because when gunpowder finally made its way into the hands of European inventors, things got creative.
I'm sensing a story here.
And knowing this podcast, it probably involves something outlandish like maybe weaponized badgers.
You're surprisingly close.
Let's just say the European chapter of this gunpowder saga is full of surprises.
Okay.
But we'll save those for part 2 of our deep dive.
Okay, so the Mongols may have given Europe a crash course in gunpowder.
I'm ready to hear how European inventors took that explosive ball and ran with it.
Did they stick with the sky-filling smoke-spurting tube? Or did they have other, perhaps even wilder ideas up their sleeves?
Let's just say European ingenuity, when combined with a touch of gunpowder fever, led to some interesting innovations.
Okay.
Imagine opening a 16th century military strategy guide, and instead of diagrams of fortifications, you find illustrations of weaponized cats.
Wait.
Weaponized cats.
As in our feline friends, outfitted for battle.
You're kidding, right?
I wish I were. We have Franz Helm, a German gunsmith, to thank for that image.
He envisioned cats strapped with explosives, scurrying into enemy camps, and, well,
Oh, okay.
you can probably guess the rest.
I mean, I can barely get my cat to chase a laser pointer, let alone storm a battlefield.
I have to ask, was this feline firepower ever actually deployed, or was it more of a thought experiment gone wrong?
There's no historical record of cat commandos actually being deployed.
Okay.
But what's fascinating is what these outlandish ideas tell us about the European mindset at the time. Remember, gunpowder was still relatively new to them.
Right.
And they were just beginning to grasp its destructive potential.
So it was a time of experimentation.
Yeah.
Of, like, pushing the boundaries of what was possible.
Even if it meant strapping explosives to unsuspecting house pets.
Exactly. And Helm wasn't alone in his unconventional thinking. Take Veit Wolf von Senftenberg, another military mind of the 16th century.
Right.
He took a more, shall we say, insidious approach.
Okay.
He was obsessed with poison, dreaming up elaborate schemes for tainting wells, crafting sleep-inducing smoke, and brewing concoctions with ingredients like snake venom.
Oh, gosh.
And believe it or not, the foam of rabid dogs.
Okay, now that's just unsettling. It's like he took inspiration from both the apothecary and the witch's cauldron.
Do we have any idea if these recipes were, actually effective?
While some of these concoctions were grounded in a rudimentary understanding of toxicology, many were likely more fearsome in theory than in practice. But again, it's crucial to remember the context here. The arrival of gunpowder in Europe coincided with a renewed interest in ancient knowledge, including the use of poisons.
Right, we talked about those ancient poison weapons.
It's like this new technology, gunpowder, reignited a fascination with an old tactic,
Right.
making war as unpleasant as possible.
Precisely. And this wasn't just about dusting off old recipes. It was about adapting them for this new age of gunpowder. Think of it as a sort of dark alchemy, a blending of ancient lore and cutting-edge weaponry. They were essentially asking, what if we took this already formidable new weapon and made it even deadlier?
It's a chilling thought, really.
But in all this experimentation, was there any sense of, well, maybe we've gone too far?
Any ethical concerns about, unleashing these kinds of weapons on the world?
You're hitting on a crucial point.
While many of these inventors were captivated by the possibilities of poison warfare, there was also a growing awareness of its moral implications. You see it reflected in their writings, a sort of push and pull between fascination and anxiety.
A classic case of just because we can doesn't mean we should.
Exactly. And this tension, this unease about the true cost of progress, is something that would continue to haunt the development of weaponry for centuries to come.
Wow.
But it wasn't just philosophical debates and hypothetical cats on the battlefield. The 17th century saw these ideas put into practice in a very real and devastating conflict, the 30 Years' War.
And that's where a figure like Jean Appiah Hanslick comes in, right?
From what I've read, he was more than just an armchair theorist.
Absolutely. Hanslick was a military engineer who lived and worked right in the thick of it.
Okay.
He designed weapons, wrote extensively about gunpowder and its applications.
And his work provides a fascinating glimpse into the evolving role of chemical warfare during this tumultuous period.
And from what you were saying earlier, it sounds like he wasn't afraid to get his hands dirty, so to speak, when it came to incorporating poison into his designs.
Let's just say Hanslick wasn't afraid to experiment. His work includes instructions for creating a whole arsenal of unpleasant surprises, from smoke bombs designed to poison or blind enemies to fire pots laced with noxious concoctions. He was taking the concept of a Molotov cocktail and giving it a decidedly toxic twist.
Not exactly the kind of innovation you want to be on the receiving end of.
So we've gone from weaponized cats to arsenic smoke to toxic Molotov cocktails.
It seems like things were escalating quickly.
Right.
But before we delve any deeper into the horrors of the 30 Years' War, I have to ask, did any of these European designs actually work?
Or were they more about psychological warfare than actual lethality?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
And the answer, as with much of history, is complex. Some concoctions were likely more effective than others, and the line between physical and psychological impact is often blurry.
Yeah.
But to really understand the impact of these weapons, we need to look beyond just their chemical makeup. We need to consider the context, the fear they instilled, and the long shadow they cast on the future of warfare.
Okay, now I'm even more curious to hear what you mean.
How did these early experiments with gunpowder and poison actually shape the way wars were fought?
And what about that moral dilemma we talked about, the one about the true cost of progress?
Well, that's where our deep dive takes another fascinating turn. This time to 17th century Poland, where a military engineer named Casimir Szymanowicz grappled with these very questions.
Okay.
And let me tell you, his story is a fitting end to our explosive journey through the early days of gunpowder. But we'll save that for part 3.
Okay, so we've journeyed from ancient Chinese fire drug to weaponized cats in Europe.
And now we're in 17th century Poland.
This Casimir Szymanowicz must have been quite a character to bookend this whole explosive tale.
He really was. Szymanowicz wasn't just some inventor, like tinkering in a workshop.
Right.
He was a soldier, a scholar, deeply embedded in the world of artillery.
Right.
He wrote like a whole treatise on gunpowder, everything from its production to its use in various weapons.
So he was clearly fascinated by the technical side of things.
Yeah.
But you're also suggesting he was wrestling with the ethical implications of this technology, right?
Right.
Especially given the whole poison-laced weapons trend we've been discussing.
Exactly.
And that's what makes Szymanowicz so interesting. His writings delve into those dark corners of gunpowder's potential.
Okay.
Poison-laced shot.
Right.
Blinding smoke.
Even something called stink balls.
Stink balls?
Yeah.
Okay, you got to tell me more about those.
What exactly did they stink up?
Imagine, if you will, a battlefield, already a symphony of horrifying sights and sounds. Then, into the fray, someone hurls a projectile specifically designed to unleash a wave of, shall we say, unholy stench. We're talking ingredients like powdered horse hooves, sulfur, and other noxious substances, all meant to just overwhelm the enemy's senses.
It sounds like something out of a Monty Python sketch.
But I imagine the reality was far from amusing.
Right.
It makes you wonder, though, were these stink balls purely for psychological warfare, or were they actually, dangerous?
That's a question historians still debate.
Okay.
While some argue that stink balls were mainly intended to just, disrupt and demoralize the enemy,
Right.
others suggest they may have contained genuinely harmful substances, capable of causing respiratory problems or other ill effects.
So a potent mix of the disgusting and the potentially deadly.
But what really strikes me is how Szymanowicz himself seemed conflicted about this kind of warfare.
Absolutely. Right alongside detailed descriptions of these weapons, he includes these strong moral condemnations of their use.
Wow.
Particularly against fellow Christians. He draws parallels to ancient prohibitions on poison warfare.
Okay.
Highlighting a long-standing unease with these tactics that transcended time and culture.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
It's like he's acknowledging this long history of debate and discomfort around poison weapons.
Right. Yeah.
Even as he's describing their construction and deployment.
Exactly.
And I think that's a crucial takeaway from our deep dive into gunpowder's early days,
Yeah.
this technology wasn't just about bigger explosions or more effective projectiles.
Right.
It sparked a profound moral and philosophical debate about the acceptable limits of warfare, a debate that continues to this day.
It's a powerful reminder that technological progress doesn't happen in a vacuum.
Right.
It always comes with consequences, intended or otherwise.
And it forces us to confront, those difficult questions about how we choose to wield the power at our disposal.
Well said.
And that, I think, is a fitting conclusion to our exploration of early gunpowder and chemical warfare. We've seen how a simple discovery, born in the crucibles of ancient China, set in motion a chain reaction of innovation, conflict, and ethical dilemmas that continue to shape the world we live in today.
From fire drug to spink balls, it's been a wild ride through history.
So next time you see a cannon blast in a movie or, read about ancient battles, just remember there's a whole lot more to the story of gunpowder than meets the eye. Thanks for joining us for this explosive deep dive, and we'll catch you on the next episode.